Welcome back to Self-Hypnosis for Healing. I'm Elizabeth Catherine, and today we're talking a little bit about being kinder to yourself. And then we're going to do a nice long self-hypnosis session where you're going to focus on a few things that are good about yourself. Before we get into all of that, I'd just like to say thank you so much to everybody who has been listening and sharing and helping me get the word out there about this podcast. Definitely seeing the growth, and it's working, so thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And if you are listening and you're enjoying this podcast, the best thing you can do to help me grow and spread the word is to share it with your friends, people that you think could benefit from some of these self-hypnosis sessions and our little discussions about self-hypnosis and healing. So I was actually a little bit lost last week on episode ideas. So I wasn't really sure what I was going to do this week, which is weird for me because I have so many ideas. I even have lists of ideas, but nothing seemed to be fitting until I was looking through my Instagram page and I came across this really cool little reel where there was an interview between these two people. It's posted on by someone named Jared Mello, and his tag name is The Wizard of Radical Self-Respect. And sometimes I just think about that title, The Wizard of Radical Self-Respect. And sometimes it does feel so radical to have respect for yourself. It should be something that feels so natural, but it does seem like such a radical idea to some of us, to respect yourself enough to put up boundaries and say no and take a rest when you need it. All these things that we should just be doing. It does feel very like, whoa. I mean, you think I can take a nap on a Saturday afternoon? Even if there's still dishes to do? You know, like, yeah, you should. So anyway, this conversation was between Jared Mello and Kelly Marie Conrad. They were talking about children who have grown up in a narcissistic family or some other mentally, verbally abusive type of family where the child has been scapegoated. So everything that goes wrong is sort of that child's fault, or they're just never good enough, right? This page, The Wizard of Radical Self-Respect, is really good at really breaking down these family dynamics. So if you find yourself in this type of situation, I highly recommend following this page or watching the interviews on YouTube. But in this one particular interview, she said, in reference to people who have been sort of beaten down, instead of thinking about everything that is wrong with you, start thinking about what is right with you. And this applies to, and this was Kelly Marie Conrad who said this, and I feel like this applies to everything. You know, I repeated it to one of my friends, and she said something like, yeah, even the advertising is out there telling us everything that's wrong with us so that they can fix us. It's everywhere. Everything's telling us that there's things about us that need to be fixed. And so we've gotten so focused on what's wrong with us that we're not focusing on what's right with us. And I'll share links to all of these, both of these people and their socials and things in the show notes. But if we start to think about this from a hypnotherapy perspective, we can start to create neural pathways in our mind that are connecting our thoughts more toward what is right with us. Because when you're under hypnosis, as we've talked about before, you get your brain slowed down to those nice, gentle, slow theta waves. And once we're in that state of mind, we're able to sort of create those new synaptical connections. Your imagination is more vibrant, your visualization is easier, and you're able to create these experiences for your mind that are sort of in that between sleeping and waking state where you are able to create new neural pathways in your mind and you're sort of shortcutting instead of spending hours and hours and hours like, reciting a mantra like, I am beautiful, I am wonderful, or whatever it is you want to say about yourself. You want to create the feeling for yourself. When you're doing it under hypnosis, it's like magnified times 10 because you're shortcutting and you're able to allow your brain to create those new connections without having all of the other things in the way. Like that part of when your brain is moving so fast, you're not even hearing that you're contradicting say I'm beautiful, right? Let's use that. If you're telling yourself I'm beautiful under hypnosis and you're envisioning all the ways that you are beautiful, you've sort of you've passed that point where you've turned off that overly analytical part of your brain and you're able to just accept that. And there's not really anything in the way between you and your belief. When you're awake and you're thinking, I'm beautiful, you can feel that resistance almost. You can feel like, oh, but you're not, because you don't have that little tummy you had when you were 21, and you've got an age spot on the side of your cheek. I'm just literally reciting the things that are going through my mind as I say that. So, our waking brains are so conditioned to overanalyze and be very critical about ourselves, really. And anything that we're thinking, really. If you're thinking one thing, you've got the argument going on your brain thinking the other thing. So under hypnosis, you sort of turn that overcritical part off. The argumentative part of your brain sort of gets turned off, and you're able to accept things and internalize them and allow them to become a part of you. This works also if you're a musician, you're playing music, when you get in that place that's they call it the zone. For artists, and you're in the zone, you're completely connected, and you've turned off that overly critical part of your brain, and you're able to see very clearly what those next steps are in your piece of artwork or in your music or in your acting or whatever art form, or your writing, whatever art form you're taking on. You can also get into those slower brain waves and make that smooth connection between your thought and creating that thought as a reality without the overcritical part. So that's why things like journaling really work for some people when they're trying to change the way that they perceive the world. If you're writing something out, and once you get into that zone where your brainwaves slow down and the part of your brain that's being really critical sort of turns off, you're able to untangle some of your thoughts that way and start to create some real change in your beliefs. I've always used painting for this because for me, I can slow myself down while I'm painting and start to get really internal and get into that zone and be able to create really nice things on the page and also within myself. Essentially, what I'm saying is that whatever you can do to slow down your mind and start to internalize any change that you're trying to create within yourself, the more success you will have with changing your beliefs. So we're still talking about belief change here, but we're also talking about really changing your perception of yourself, right? Because that's the belief we're changing. The avenue we're taking to do that is changing your thought pattern. I think when I was in my mid-20s, I tried this thing where every time I had a negative thought about someone, I had a really icky coworker situation, and I was young, and she was driving me nuts, and every time I had a negative thought, I just put a little line on the paper, and I was trying to see if every time every day I would maybe get less and less, but that was not the case. It changed nothing for me to point out to myself when I was being negative. Because I wasn't I was focusing on being negative. So if you're going to focus on being negative, then you're just creating more negativity. Instead, I should have counted how many positive thoughts I had. Because then if I'm having positive thoughts and I'm counting those, I'm keeping track of that, then it should be increasing the positivity instead of what I was doing, which was increasing the negativity. Needless to say, I gave up on that little project. And I eventually quit that job. So what we're trying to do is slowly retrain the brain to become more in line with thinking positive things about ourselves and focusing on what's right with you. And we're going to do that by making a list of 3 things that you like about yourself. I'm going to be honest, when I sat down to do this the first time, which was like Friday, so today's Monday, I could only come up with 1. So if you can only come up with 1, that's enough. By today, I've been able to come up with like 5 or 6, which I'm very excited about because I've been thinking about this all weekend, about what do I like about myself, what is right about me. And so if you can only come up with 1, that's okay. We'll just, when you're in the hypnosis, just do the same one over and over. If you change them when you're in the hypnosis, like if you wrote down, I'm happy, and then instead you wanted to say, I'm funny, that's okay. It's not set in stone. This is just so that when I prompt you to think about what it is that you like about yourself, you've already got an idea of what you want to use. If you write down 1 thing and then you can come up with 3 more while we're in the hypnosis, that's amazing. It's just completely up to you how you want to do this, okay? And whatever decisions you make when you're under the self-hypnosis session, it's your experience. I'm just here as a guide, and so nothing is set in stone. Whatever you come up with is perfectly fine once you're under the hypnosis session. So make your list. You know I love to make you make lists. So make your list of 3 things that you like about yourself and grab a blanket, get cozy, and we're going to start this nice, beautiful self-hypnosis session. So I hope you guys all have a great day, and I will see you next week.